If the UN has already determined that Israel's deliberate firing on UNIFIL positions is a grave violation of international humanitarian law, what are their next steps? What are the consequences?
Well, for our part, we are reminding Israel of their obligations, and we will continue to do that.
So politicians in Europe have suddenly woken up to Israeli war crimes. This was after Israel was accused of deliberately and repeatedly targeting UN peacekeeping force. They are not even sparing UN peacekeeping force. They kill children, they kill women, they kill babies for fun. First in Gaza, then the occupied West Bank, now in Lebanon. They have destroyed Gaza. They have destroyed occupied West Bank. They are now on course to repeat the destruction of Gaza and the occupied West Bank in Lebanon with impunity, because they know they have their backers in the UK and US and in EU, Canada, Australia, United Nations. All these institutions are there to protect their war crimes. And that's why they have become so emboldened that now they are even not sparing the United Nations peacekeeping force. This time they have targeted and they have attacked them in Lebanon. They were members of the United Nations peacekeeping force in Lebanon, also called UNIFIL. And that is exactly what has angered Italy and Ireland. Both these countries have reacted very angrily. In fact, Italy has summoned the Israeli ambassador in their country. This is what happens when you back a settler colony called Israel and their thuggery and their war crimes. So who are these peacekeeping force? Who are these soldiers? They are in 10,000 in numbers and have soldiers from 50 countries. So as many as 50 countries have contributed with their soldiers. So there are 10,000 plus military personnel and 800 civilian staff members. Their headquarters is in coastal town of Naqoura, and they are spread across 50 positions, covering an area of 1,060 square kilometers and 410 square miles. So what has happened? On Thursday, Italy and Ireland registered their protest and outrage after Israel was accused of deliberately and repeatedly attacking the UN peacekeeping force. Now, EU President, this lady, this graceful woman who you can see on the screen, has remained silent. You don't expect her to break her silence when it comes to reacting to Israeli violations. She only wakes up from her sleep or slumber to talk about Hamas and protect Israeli war crimes and defend Israel for its war crimes. She is one of the most disgusting women I have ever come across. In fact, she is right alongside that woman, the veto woman from America. History will not remember these disgraceful women very kindly. Anyway, but the EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has condemned Israeli action, saying the settler colony had crossed another dangerous line. He said, and I quote, "We condemn this inadmissible act for which there is no justification. 2 blue helmets have been wounded, and this is unacceptable. Any deliberate attack on peacekeepers is a grave violation of international humanitarian law and of the UNSC, United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701. Israel has an obligation to respect both. Full accountability is needed." End of quote. The UNIFIL has been there in the region since 1978, when Israeli forces illegally first invaded and occupied southern Lebanon for 3 months. The UNIFIL force was mandated to ensure that Israeli forces withdraw from the region and international peace and security is restored there. It was also tasked with helping the Lebanese government to re-establish its control over the area. The UNIFIL kept its presence there even during the second illegal invasion by Israel in 1982. Now, coming back to today's grave violations by Israel, Italy summoned the Israeli ambassador. That's because Italy has around 1,000 soldiers as part of the UNIFIL. Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto said that the incidents are intolerable and they must be carefully and decisively avoided. On the other hand, Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris also reacted very angrily, and he said that the blue helmet worn by UN peacekeepers must be sacrosanct. Ireland has about 300 soldiers as part of the UNIFIL. When Israel began its illegal invasion of Lebanon a few days ago, you remember it had asked the Irish troops to leave the area, which they had refused. Now we know why. Because Israel wanted to cause the carnage, kill people with impunity, cause destruction, and wanted nobody to document that. What has happened today? Israeli reacted and targeted these forces because they were documenting their war crimes. Their cameras were snatched, their recording device was snatched, and it was destroyed. Now, most shocking thing has been the reaction from the United Nations. The United Nations spokesperson has reacted very shamefully. Watch the video and see how scared he is. As if, in fact, his choice of words, he's not condemning Israeli action. And he's so careful in choosing his words, as if there is some kind of fear that he is harboring in his mind. There is a fear of Israel, or fear of America, or fear of the collective West. I don't know. But imagine if this was some other country deliberately and repeatedly targeting the international peacekeeping force. Would the United Nations have reacted in the way that they have reacted now? Watch the video.
What reaction has the United Nations received from the Israeli Defense Forces?
Well, we certainly are in touch with the Israeli Defense Forces, and we're trying to make sure that all further such activities that endanger the safety of peacekeepers are halted, and we'll continue with that dialogue with them.
Have you gotten any explanation?
There's nothing to share on that just yet. Obviously, it's up to the Israelis to explain their own actions.
I'll come back.
Oh, okay. Tony?
Thank you, Farhan. A follow-up, actually, on UNIFIL also. Regardless of the communications going on between the United Nations and Israeli authorities in this regard, my question is there any measures in place to deal with situations like this when peacekeeping forces are attacked?
We have liaison mechanisms with all of the forces in the region, and so we rely upon that to make sure that calm is restored to the area, and we're going to continue to do that. Obviously, the parties themselves have legal obligations to make sure that they abide by the relevant Security Council resolutions and also ensure the security of the peacekeeping forces that are there. Yes, Gabriel.
Thanks, Farhan. Israel's ambassador to the UN reportedly put out a statement today saying that UNIFIL peacekeepers need to move 5 kilometers north to avoid danger as fighting intensifies. Your reaction?
We have been pointing out that there have been requests for the peacekeepers to move. Obviously, they have their mandated tasks. While we continue to assess the safety and security of our peacekeeping forces, it's important that they also fulfill their mandate, and they are at present staying in their positions.
What's the Secretary General's thinking on the viability of UNIFIL being able to continue its work, given that it's now directly being targeted by a member state?
There's no cause for any member state to target UNIFIL forces. So we will make that completely clear. The Secretary General believes that UNIFIL has a vital role to play in ensuring stability in that part of southern Lebanon, and they will continue to go about their work as mandated. Yvonne?
Thanks, Farhan. If the UN has already determined that Israel's deliberate firing on UNIFIL positions is a grave violation of international humanitarian law, what are their next steps? What are the consequences?
Well, for our part, we're reminding Israel of their obligations, and we will continue to do that so that they cease any further activities that can harm the work and indeed the security of our peacekeeping forces. In terms of UN bodies, of course, we will leave it to the Security Council themselves to consider how they wish to address these matters. Maggie?
Farhan, so in the statement, the UNIFIL statement, it said that equipment was damaged, destroyed, recording equipment. So are we to take it that part of the monitoring UNIFIL does, they would record maybe fighting in the area, damage to residential buildings, community buildings, infrastructure, etc.?
Any damage to our equipment damages our ability to carry out our mandate. Obviously, we will try to make sure that we can get our equipment repaired, but obviously, it's vital that no one target our facilities.
But there's been a lot of damage in this area, 652 and 650, the villages Yaroun and Maroun al Ras, and this is where this incident took place, like lots of buildings destroyed, if you've seen satellite images and such that have been or drone images. So how will this impair UNIFIL's ability to report on what's happening there?
Yeah, it very clearly hinders our abilities if our equipment is damaged. This is something we will take up, and indeed Jean-Pierre Lacroix is briefing the Security Council at 3 this afternoon, and he can talk at further length with them about how this affects us.
I bet the US and the UK will still not say anything. They will still not see anything wrong in Israeli action because they are sellout politicians. And these sellout politicians are bereft of morality and basic human values. They will continue to defend Israel despite its genocidal activities, first in Gaza, then in the occupied West Bank, and now in Lebanon. The whole world is seeing that, and yet the world has been silent. You know why? Because these sellout politicians have been truly compromised. So much so that they will not say anything or see anything wrong in the action of this settler colony, even when Israeli forces target American and British nationals. We've seen how the Biden regime chose to look the other way when American nationals were killed by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories, namely Gaza and the West Bank, in the last 12 months. Britain too remained unmoved when Israelis slaughtered 3 of its nationals working for the World Central Kitchen under the Rishi Sunak government. That's the true color of the so-called civilized countries and developed countries. Everything, including their self-esteem and morality, are up for sale as long as the price is right. That's the reality. Deal with it. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that this platform is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.